I was trying to get as close as possible.
And thank you for coming down today. Thank you for joining us.
Staying close to Mom.
Very much.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you all.
Thank you once again.
Next, we have a proclamation recognizing National Public Safety Telecommunications Week, April 10 through 16, 2022. This will be presented by Commissioner Flesher, and I think we have some folks in the audience for this as well. So y'all want to come on up to the podiums?
Thank
Sheriff?
you, Mr. Chair. I see Sheriff, Chief. We have a nice league here. Please come on down. These are your people, and we have a nice array of the people who make it count from the first call. The eyes and the voices of the Sheriff's Office when people are in need, when they dial that number, these are the folks. The word telecommunications is kind of soft, but they have a very hard job and a very comforting concern, care, and attention to detail, obligation to ensure that people get what they need, where they need, and that the deputies, the officers, come home safely as well. And that information is critical and vital. I have to tell you, I see a league of folks. I see one individual that from over 1,000 miles away when I was in New York City during 9/11 that was one comforting voice to me and communicated so that I can communicate to the sheriff. And I want you to know that every time we're together, that's what I think about. It was a very comforting time, a significant time of loss for me. And that's what you do every day, not knowing what that call is going to be. So I'm pleased and honored to present this proclamation to a team of individuals who have no idea where they're going or what they're doing, but know everything about what they're doing and where they're going because they have to. It's their commitment. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'd like to present this proclamation, National Public Safety Telecommunications Week for April 10th through the 16th, 2022. Whereas emergencies that require police, fire, and emergency medical services can occur at any time. And when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from the citizens who telephone the Indian River County Sheriff's Office Dispatch Center. And whereas public safety dispatchers are the first and the most critical contact of our citizens that have an emergency services. And whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their duties of the past year. They are knowledgeable and highly trained individuals who work closely with police, fire, and medical personnel. And whereas in Indian River County Sheriff's Office Public Safety, the dispatches dispatched 188,956 calls for service for law enforcement and 33,456 calls for fire rescue in 2021, as well as answered 68,461 911 calls and 104,664 administrative calls. And whereas public safety dispatches of the Indian River County Sheriff's Office have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of crimes, and treatment of patients. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the week of April the 10th through the April 16th, 2022, be designated as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week in Indian River County, and to honor the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our county and citizens safe. Duly adopted this 12th day of April 2022, and it is signed by all 5 county commissioners. Good morning, team.
Morning. On behalf of all of our dispatchers, I want to thank you all for recognizing the work that we do. As Commissioner Fleischer said, telecommunicators are more than just a calm voice. We're the vital first link in the emergency response chain and the protectors of law enforcement and fire rescue. As you all know, we are continuing our fight to be recognized as first responders with the 911 SAVES Act. Although strides have been made in both the House and the Senate, the bill did not pass this year. I ask that you continue to help us fight this change. And as always, you're all always welcome to come in and see firsthand a day in the life of a dispatcher. Thank you all again.
Sheriff.
Commissioners, thank you for taking time to recognize our team in dispatch. I know that 2 of the commissioners have actually been on the other end of those microphones, and I know you know what it's like when you need these folks. And they are absolutely the heartbeat of our agency, without a doubt. Everything starts with our dispatchers. Every single call, every time that our folks need to respond or need to know where to go, it starts right there in dispatch. Robin brought up that and Robin is supervisor in our dispatch center, by the way. She brought up that our dispatchers are fighting to be recognized as first responders, and that means reclassification at the state level or potentially the national level to be recognized for high risk. We know that there's trauma, that there's PTSD associated with this, and County Administrator, we were just talking about a program that we're working on at the Sheriff's Office to add some additional services for mental health and PTSD. But our dispatchers answer every single one of those calls. They get no closure whatsoever on any of them. As the calls come in, they don't know what happened to a lot of these folks. Our men and women that respond to the calls actually see what happens, and they don't know, and they have no closure. They have to move on. They can't just stop and say, hey, I'm going to take a break. There's another 911 call coming in behind it, and that next call might be even worse. They give CPR over the phone. They turn them over to EMS. They don't know if that person survived. So we know and recognize that there's a lot of trauma that these folks experience during their career. And we have folks that have been in there for 35 years who have been answering these calls for 35 plus years. It's incredible the dedication that we have in our team. I'm so proud of them. I thank you for this time to recognize them. And please, don't just do it this 1 week. They're there 365 days a year. On Christmas, they're answering those 911 calls. And believe it or not, we get them. They still happen. So please don't just make it this week. Remember to recognize our dispatchers all the time. And as Robin invited you in, I double down on that. Come by. Please come by. Sit with the dispatchers. Listen to the 911 calls. Listen to how people are on the phone. I mean, they get some nasty calls in there. They get people who are yelling at them. They get people who are calling them names. That's a terrible thing to experience on a daily basis. And I think you guys should definitely come by. And that's for you guys as well. Please come by and visit and sit down for a couple hours and listen to those calls. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Sheriff. You all want to come on up? Thanks for all you do. Thank you. Thank you for all you do.
You have the honors
Thanks for everything you do.
as the leader of
Thanks for all you do.
this morning group.
Thanks for all
Thank
you
you.
do.
Thank you.
Thanks. Gee, I wonder who's been there 35 years.
Did you notice she looked around the room like there's an older person here? Or...
Why don't y'all take about 3 steps to your left there? Slide over a little bit. There we go. That's good. Yeah. Put the tall guy in front of you.
I know, I see how this works. No, you're fine, I'm used to it.
Thank you.
And you get photographed by the chief.
I think Brett needs a stool back here. Yeah.
All right, there's no minutes and there's no informational items, so consent agenda. Vice Chair Ehrman, you wanted to pull 8A.
I do.
And we did pull 8D off the agenda earlier. Is there anyone else wish to pull any other item off consent agenda?
No, sir.
Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience that would like to have a consent agenda item pulled for additional discussion? Seeing none, Commissioners?
Approval as amended.
We have a motion by Commissioner Flesher, second by Commissioner Adams. All in favor signify with aye. Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Mr. Vice Chair Ehrman, item 8A, please.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I don't have anything to say. I'm going to turn it over to our illustrious clerk of the court, Mr. Smith.
Good morning, Jeff.
It's something to do with
Thank you,
this
Chairman.
neat book.
Commissioners. There was a rumor that one of you has read this book cover to cover, and Commissioner Ehrman gets the prize. When I started in this business 30 years ago, this book was less than half of this. So that shows you what regulation and everything else has occurred over the last 30 years. It's now over 500 pages. And if anybody can read this and tell me what they read, I'll give you $1,000.
I didn't say that I understand.
Anyway, this is they renamed the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. That was one change. And we have got the award from GFOA for 38 straight years. We believe this also will qualify for that award. I wanted to make a few comments. I usually don't go through this very much, but this was a particularly unique year in the fact of the CARES money and the APR money, and ARP money, excuse me. And our auditors found that we did everything exactly the way we were supposed to do it, and that's an accomplishment, understanding that the government kept moving the target on the rules. So we came up with a clean opinion, and everything related to the way we handled the CARES money and the ARP money was according to law and regulation. So I wanted to make that stipulation there. The main thing I'd like to go over is the PAFR, which I know Commissioner O'Brien loves, and I got your box right here.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeff.
And you'll see on the front, the Jones Pier and the Jones
Oh, nice.
Conservation Area. We put that on the front. There's also a picture of the lagoon from the Jones Pier inside. So you should be proud of that. I always look to two things to point out to you. On page 9, and I think you all got a copy of this beforehand, but when we do this, we break down a dollar and break it down between what that dollar goes to. And if you'll see there that the school board has 47% of the dollar, each dollar of taxes. Indian River County has 26%. So you're doing a really good job of managing taxpayers' dollars is what my point is. And emergency services is 17%. The other thing, two other things I'd like to bring to your attention is that out of the revenue sources for the governmental funds, we brought in $115 million in property taxes, and $105 million of that, $105 million of that goes to public safety. So the majority of the property taxes goes to cover fire, rescue, and the sheriff's department. And then the last thing I'd like to report to you is on page 17, the debt per capita is now down to $29 per person in Indian River County. So over the last 10 years, we've gone from $666 per person down to $29 per person. So we've done that well with that as well, paying down our debt. We only have $4.7 million worth of debt left, and that's due to be paid off by 2030? 2032, if we don't pay it off early. So our fund balance is total $69.9 million, and of that, $67 million of that is unrestricted. So if we have a catastrophic event like a major hurricane like Gene or I can't remember the last, Francis and Gene, we have the money to rebuild if we have to. So you're doing a good job of managing taxpayers' dollars. We're fiscally really strong, and we get good ratings because of the financial situation that we're in. I'd like to compliment Kristen Daniels in the budget office for the way she runs her shop and the way that we interact with her and her people. And I'd like to thank my staff, Ryan Butler, Rand Cohn, Alyssa Nagy, and Laura MacGyver, who is the person who creates this. She's my HR director, but she's very talented and creative, and she does this. So thank you to my staff. Couldn't do it without any of them. So thank you.
Jeff, as always, a great job, and, you know, when people move here or ask about the county and finances and stuff, and, you know, I don't want to hand them that 500-page book. It's much easier to give them the pretty 20-page one. But I do, like, you know, in the past, I've always said, I think it's a great tool, and it's very clear and concise, but it gives a very accurate picture, particularly to a newcomer, exactly what the county is doing and our financial status and things like that. And a lot of people find that important. So I'm really pleased. Again, you guys have got that out, and I didn't get my copy yet, so I'll look forward to digging in my box there and getting one out.
I'll put your case over there for you.
Sounds good. Great. Thank you, Jeff.
I started that 6 years ago, and we've got the award for that every year. We believe that this will also get that award as well. We get good comments from GFOA on how that's presented. So.
Good. Just on a side note, Jeff, I don't know if all the commissioners have heard or not, but the Jones Pier area there, the wetlands we've created, apparently, from my understanding, is that the blue crabs have moved in to the created wetland area, and now there's just bunches of them in there. So that seems to be working good, so I'm glad it made the cover. That's great. So thank you.
And they're in the slot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're Vice Chair Ehrman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move approval of the presentation by our clerk of the court.
Second.
Very good. We have a motion by Joe, second by Joe.
Clerk, get that.
All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Thank you again, and thank you, staff. Excellent job, as always, and always makes us proud when we win those kind of awards for budget and finance, because I think that also shows our transparency with the public and that we're doing the right thing and putting those out. So thank you for all your efforts on that. We now move on to a public hearing. This is a hearing for amendment to Section 3112.11, Performance Security of Chapter 312, Rights of Way of the Indian River County Code of Ordinances. And Susan Prado will be making the presentation. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. So on March 15th, 2022, I brought before the board a proposal from staff concerning proposed changes to Section 312.11 for performance security under Chapter 312 of the Rights of Way of Indian River County Code. That proposed change was to allow a letter of credit as a form of security, in addition to the other forms of security as cash and bond that are currently allowed. And the reason for those changes, again, was to allow some sort of consistency across the different sections of the code, as there were other sections, in particular 913.10 and 954.11, both of those also allowing for letters of credit as a form of security when someone is posting security with the county. At this point in time, we have actually advertised for a public hearing on April 1st, and we are recommending that the board, after conducting a public hearing and taking any public input, approve the draft ordinance.
Commissioners, any questions of staff? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to comment on the item before us? Seeing none and having provided ample opportunity, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioner, it's your pleasure.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
I would
ma'am.
be happy to move approval.
Very good. We have a motion from Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Flesher. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
There's no public discussion, no public notice, so we move to departmental matters. Under community development, the redevelopment of Gifford Gardens, RFP 2021-014. And I think our community development staff is coming up. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Thank you, Commissioners. We do have a brief PowerPoint here. So this is the Gifford Gardens RFP. And the Board of County Commissioners approved the RFP to redevelop the Gifford Gardens property, which is located at 4730 40th Avenue, with affordable single-family housing on July 13th of 2021. And following that process, one proposal was received from East to West Development Corporation, which is a nonprofit housing provider. And that proposal included approximately 17 new single-family homes, all of which are 3-bedroom and range in size from about 1,800 to 2,000 square feet. And the single proposal received was reviewed through a purchasing selection committee based on a set of evaluation criteria. And following that, the committee decided not to recommend award to the sole proposer. And then after that, on February 23rd of 2022, the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, AHAC, considered the same proposal. And they also voted to recommend that the Board of County Commissioners reject the proposal. Now, in addition to that, the AHAC also voted to set up a workshop, which is scheduled for April 27th of 2022, to consider some additional alternatives aside from just single-family homes. They will be looking at things like townhomes, apartments, condos. And the intent there is to try to provide a more affordable housing option. And those ideas, the things that come out of the workshop, will be put into a new RFP, which will come back before the board. So our staff's recommendation is based on a consensus of the selection committee and also the AHAC. Staff recommends that the Board of County Commissioners reject the proposal from East to West Development Corporation for redevelopment of the Gifford Gardens property with single-family homes.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions of staff?
I do.
Commissioner Moss?
Yes, thank you. We have, or received this morning, a memorandum from East to West, which was the sole bidder on this project. And it is stated on page 2 that the projected, this is toward the bottom of the page, the projected costs of the infrastructure for this project would be $835,000. Is that correct? Infrastructure costs?
Staff doesn't know what the actual development cost would be. That is an estimate from the proposer, so we don't have like an engineer's cost estimate for the improvements. They would have to put in roadway, drainage, utility improvements, just like any development. But staff does not have the dollar amount of what that would actually be.
Thank you. I'm wondering if we'll run into the same problem again. That's why I ask. I mean, we've, just to recap, we've allotted an extra, as you know, an extra $350,000 from the ARP money toward this, and we also gave the impact credits and water and sewer credits. And do you think that that's sufficient, that if this goes back around for another try, that we will actually attract someone, I mean, more than this bidder?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely cost savings that could be had by looking at options other than just specifically single-family homes, which is what this first RFP handled. So I think there could be some cost savings in looking at other options.
Looking at other options in what regard? Because I know that it was mentioned here in the letter, and I think also at the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee meeting, that perhaps should look at changing the structures themselves, or considering other types of changes having to do with the actual buildings. You know, a different roof, different finishes for cabinets, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think all of that can be considered. Certainly the fit and finish, the materials used, we can look at that. But again, also looking at just different options instead of the standalone single-family home, looking at you know, townhomes, apartment complexes, things like that.
Okay. Do you have any reason to expect that we will have more bidders if we put it out there again?
I do think that there's some additional interest that has popped up since this originally went through, so it's possible we have some additional bidders.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else, commissioners? Okay, is there anyone here from East West that would like to have a comment, make a comment? Okay, we'll acknowledge to the clerk that Mr. Reingold did pass out the letter from East West, so that'll be part of the record. So with no one else here to speak, commissioners, your pleasure.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Fleischer.
There has been quite community involvement with this between AHAC and within the community, and I just want to say that I wish that economic conditions were different, that a bid could have been met, and I just have a tremendous concern while we are seeking to get affordability. I don't want to compromise the integrity by, I heard, reducing, maybe dumbing down the materials. There's a point where now we could be in a process of supporting something in the future that would be compromisable, as we learned in the hurricanes many times over. And it still has to be built to a certain strength, resistance, and standards, and with the proper materials. So it's unfortunate that the materials right now, no matter what is designed, those sticks and bricks are a little out of range. And it's disheartening because it's a beautiful spot in the middle of a community that desperately needs more affordable, more reliable housing that's done in a very positive, consistent fashion. And I do have some concerns that by rejecting the bid, that it may even cost a little more up the road. But I think we have to look at safety and security, and we have to look at affordability. And I don't believe that an estimated cost of $350,000 per unit is affordable by any means, no matter what granting process we could secure with the county, the people of Indian River County giving up that land and donating the land and donating and doing everything they can. I found it odd that the proposer points out about the infrastructure costs, like we're supposed to eradicate that. Infrastructure costs are extremely important, and there's no reason to build a home that people can't get to safely and with the proper utilities and roadway and access, because after all, it's a lot to do with providing residents, providing ownership, and providing pride in a community. And it's just very unfortunate that we have to set this one back. But thank you for your hard work. Mr. Chair, I see there's a few citizens that They want to talk, would you like to give them the opportunity?
Yeah, if anyone wants to speak to this, I can come on up. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Anthony Brown, 4159 57th Court, Gifford, Florida. Just one thing I'd like to add to the table. As many of you know, home ownership is the foundation for generational wealth. And when we initially started the Gifford Garden Project strictly about home ownership, single-family homes. And with what the county staff has done with all the giveaways and the money that they put into this project, $350,000 for a home with all the county is giving is ludicrous. I mean, even minimal common sense would tell us something's wrong with that scenario. But moving forward, we want you to keep it in your mindset. There's Victory Park, there's Habitat for Humanity, there's Orangewood, there's all of these rental areas that does not afford us the opportunity to have generational wealth. So by putting these and staying with the process of single-family homes, you will inherently boost the community who's been marginalized over the years, who now have a foundation to move forward. So continue to do your due diligence and realize it is paramount that we do single-family homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wish to speak? Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, Freddie Woolfolk, 4590 57th Avenue. I'm not a builder, I'm not a contractor, I'm not a public official, I'm just a Joe Blow citizen trying to stand in the gap for individuals who can't make these meetings, people who work from 9 to 5. And they're echoing, they want to own a home one day, the American dream. And sometimes I think the American dream is leaning toward becoming an American nightmare. And we don't want that. We want these people to feel that they are part of this beautiful country. We live in one of the greatest countries in the world. I'm so proud to be in Indian River County because I think this is one of the greatest counties in the world. But we have to make the other people feel a part too. And how can you do that? By affording them an opportunity to own a home. So when we first started this conversation and we went out and walked the grounds, I was very excited to know that Gifford Garden, which had really decayed down to a shameful condition, I don't want to see that repeated again. But I do want to see somehow, some way, that we can get home ownership for these individuals in our county. It's sad when our children have to move to Brevard County or to St. Lucie County. My daughter lives in Brevard County. I wanted her here in River County, but she couldn't find an affordable home. So I go, my daughter, go, and she went, and got a nice home. So I'm asking that whether there are subsidies or whether there's some type of discounted infusing of funds or something to help these individuals who want a home, not rent a home. Now, I'm like this now. I'm a realistic person. I know that we want home ownership. We want that. If it takes a little longer to get that, let's do that. But don't allow this project to be another rental place. Allow it to be a home ownership. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Freddie. Is there anyone else? Good morning, welcome.
Morning, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Joseph Paladin. I'm president of Black Swan Consulting. I also have been a builder and a developer for around 50 years. Let me ask a couple questions. What's the square footage of these homes supposed to be? I didn't catch that when you were doing your PowerPoint.
Square footage is between 1,800 and 2,000 square feet, roughly.
All right, first of all, I agree with Freddie and Mr. Brown that we should stick with single-family homes as pride of ownership. Mm-hmm. I don't see any reason why a home has to be 18 to 2,000 square feet. Okay. That's totally ridiculous. When I was doing affordable housing around the state of Florida 20-some years ago, I know prices have went up, we were building 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes in 900 and 1,000 square feet. Right now, I have projects that are going forward with single-family homes that are 1,200, 1,300 square feet. I was in one of them yesterday. They're great. They're roomy. They're very affordable. And the price of $350 is not affordable. It's totally ridiculous. But I think we should definitely lower that square footage. I don't see any reason why we can't do it in like 1,200 or 1,300 square feet. That would be one of my answers to start with.
Mr. Paladin, if you don't mind, do you know what the homes that you referenced that were being constructed, what the price per square foot is on the construction?
Pardon me?
the price per square foot of the ones you just referenced?
Well, I can tell you, we have a project in Fort Pierce. I have another project coming out of the ground in Felsmer. It's going to be the same product, and other projects. And in 1,200 to 1,300 square foot single family home, we're selling homes for $250,000 and $260,000, and we're making money, or we wouldn't be doing it. It's not nonprofit. So I think that if you build a 1,200 square foot, 1,300 square foot home, and your square footage price, you kept it down around maybe $120 a foot, $125 a foot, something like that, I think it can be done.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else wishes to comment? Commissioners, your pleasure.
Mr. Chair?
No. Go ahead.
Please, no, please
You
go ahead.
need to finish up. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I have great anticipation and expectation that once staff redefines the parameters, that we'll have a decision to make with several bidders involved. And I believe that there'll be a commitment to the community and a commitment to fair housing and an understanding that there will be ownership of homes. And just exactly what Mr. Palin said, he's currently doing a project out west of town that it goes around the 1,300 per square foot mark, and that's could be made affordable, and it could fit in the plan for a better community, a Bolden community, and an ownership community. So I believe it can be done, and I don't think that 2,000 square foot on the air is all that much necessary, or 1,800 square foot is all that necessary. A home is a home. And, you know, even if we look at the Habitat model or something a little larger than that, there are a lot of people living in homes that are getting along and fitting into those homes, and they don't need the extra bedroom down the hall and the huge lanai. That might be an unreachable mission for individuals to invest in, even with a 30-year mortgage. Mr. Chair, I'd like to move staff recommendation.
Okay. You want to second that?
I'll second it, but I want to discuss.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Flesher, second by Vice Chair Ehrman. Under discussion, Vice Chair Ehrman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. But Commissioner Fleischer, I agree with you completely. Mr. Brown, Mr. Wolford, Mr. Paladin, you all made good points, and I agree with them all. I had some of the questions, too, in reference to the square footage and things of that nature. But I can tell you, I've been talking to people about the affordable housing, even though I'm not on the committee appointed by the chairman of the AHAC. But I've got to say, out of all the things so far since I've become a county commissioner, this has been the most difficult for me to process, has been the affordable housing. Don't kid yourself. I think that any River County, along with the rest of the state of Florida, is in an affordable housing crisis. And we have to do a little bit better if we can. And I think some of those things have been mentioned here today, such as the square footage, such as other things. But I do agree that we want to go to the ownership. Rentals have their place, and normally, you know, I was always under the understanding when I was a much younger man, and some of my friends, they may rent early in their careers, but they were saving money to eventually have home ownership. So there's a place for rentals, but I think we need to strive for affordable housing, and that being home ownership. With that being said, I would hope that East West Development and other people would come back to the table and look at this with regards to making some changes to truly make this affordable. Because when I read this and read everything in it, I was like, that is not affordable. Mm-hmm. And that is not something that we can do. We're not helping anybody with that to get to the dream of home ownership. So I think we still have a lot of work to do, and I appreciate the work that staff and the county administrator and everybody's done with this to try to make this happen. And I know there's probably not anybody more disappointed than they were with regards to this. But, I think it's tough. And like Commissioner Fleischer said, the cost of materials and the cost of doing business right now is what it is. And it's a shame that, that we're in 8, 9, almost 8% inflation. I think it's probably higher on some construction material than 8%, but it's definitely a difficult process. And I think we work to it. And again, I commend everybody so far for what they've done, but I think it's time to go back to the drawing board and start over. So that's all I've got to add.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Adams, did you have anything?
No, I think everything's been covered. I just want to let everybody know that there was a very robust discussion at the AHAC committee about this particular project. That's why the recommendation from that committee to the board is to reject and go back out. At that meeting, we also committed to having further discussions about options that might be able to bring costs down, whether that's the size of the building, the style of the building, but everybody was committed to home ownership, not a rental project. But I think within the parameters of home ownership, there might be other things we can explore, and that's why that conversation will be happening on the 27th. Bringing something back here, I think, at that point is the intention. So definitely everybody's on board with everything that you guys have said, and we all recognize that there's an issue, and everybody keeps trying to find that magic bullet to solve it. But I think that this is something that is going to have to be multi-pronged across multiple boards, and this project is a good project to start with.
Jason, did you have anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that we've heard from the community, the home ownership is the focus. That's what we tried to do with the single-family homes. We want to go back and explore some various options to bring the cost down, all of which would be centered around ownership of the structure, whether townhome or single-family freestanding home or a mixture of those things. So,
okay.
Mr. Chair, I think the habitat model would help facilitate home ownership and more bids, frankly. And people are happy with it, with the habitat model. I've participated, and I think Commissioner Adams has as well, with the Women Build Days that Habitat has. And I've been in the Habitat homes, and I've spoken to people who live in the Habitat homes, and they're very happy. So I think that might be a good model for us to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer, second by Vice Chair Ehrman. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Next, we have 12B, Emergency Services, amendments to Chapter 302, Animal Control Ordinance of the Indian River Code of Ordinances. And Chief Stone will be making the presentation here. Good morning, Chief.
Good morning, Commissioners and Chairman. For consideration today is changes to Chapter 302 of the County Code, which is the Animal Control Ordinance, and to make modifications to that code regarding the leash law, and as contained in my outline. All we're requesting at this time is permission from the board to move forward, go ahead and advertise, make the necessary changes to the code, and then bring that back for a public hearing and possible consideration by the board.
Commissioners, any questions of staff? I have one, Chief, and I talking to you yesterday, I understand that a lot of people don't really take their cat for a walk. They're not on a leash, things like that. Although, as I mentioned, sometimes when we're camping, I have seen people have their cat tethered while they're sitting outside around the campsite and such. My concern with this, though, is we have a neighbor, they have cats that roam around. They're not kept in the house or anything, and they frequently end up in my yard, particularly at 2 o'clock in the morning, which then sets my dog off, and then that sets my wife off, and you can imagine how things go downhill after that.
Chain of events, yes, sir.
So while they're not on a leash, as long as we have in here that they're supposed to be on a restraint, if at some point I set a trap and catch those cats, I can tell the neighbor, hey, the county code says your cat has to be restrained. So either keep it in your house or put it on a leash. If we take this out, what what do I have to tell her, hey, you need to keep your cats in your house? What kind of authority would I have to tell her, county code says your cat can't be getting in my backyard every day?
Still contained within the code is the requirement that either you have to have permission to have that animal on somebody else's property, you have to have permission from that property owner, or that the animal cannot become a nuisance. So those are still contained within the code. And at that point, when you go through that specific chain of events that you went through, and I've lived through those chain of events myself, that animal then becomes a nuisance at that point.
And then our code will address the fact that if they don't keep them inside or something, there could be a code enforcement fine or some follow-up, some type of enforcement action? Okay. And then, so I could determine that cat is a nuisance, but maybe my other neighbors don't, so that cat could still be roaming around their yards and doesn't really, unless they complain and have you all come out and declare this is a nuisance cat. Is that, I mean, if we really want to get this cat to stay inside, do we have to have everybody declare it a nuisance or just me?
I'm not sure where to go with that statement, Commissioner. We only have to have the single complaint.
Okay.
To be able to move forward.
All right. I'm still a little bit hesitant, but we'll go ahead and open any discussion. Commissioners, any other questions or comments?
I have the same concerns.
I do. I'm sorry.
Okay, you want, go ahead, Vice Chair.
What is actually why do you, it didn't really say why you want to remove the cats from this. Is it just like antiquated language, or
I
you
think
can't enforce it, or?
Well, no, it's difficult to enforce, number one, and it does take an awful lot of staff time to continue to deal with cat complaints. It's a single complaint causing limited or no damage to somebody else's property. And it does take an awful lot of staff time, and we should be actually devoting that time to in other areas. And we do receive complaints on the other side of the street occasionally, and I think Commissioner Moss received one not too long ago, where a gentleman who had cats, he keeps them inside at night, but lets them out during the day for a short period of time to go do whatever they're going to do and wander around. And new neighbor moves in, and they start complaining about the cat running at large. Where before, he'd never had a complaint before, as long as he was there, and the cats basically may go through the yard, but they don't spend time on the other person's property. They go through and come back. So we're just trying to address those types of issues too. There are both sides to this issue. And
Is it really broken?
I don't know if it's broken, but it's a little damaged.
So basically, it's just taking up more of your staff time. You're getting complaints on it, but it's hard to enforce everything you just said.
It continues with all those types of issues, yes, sir.
So, Chief, the example you just gave, though, the new neighbor moves in, and so he calls and complains. Currently, we could go out there and tell the cat owner, we've had a complaint, the code says your cat has to be restrained. If we get another complaint, we're going to come and give you a fine. If we take this out, then it's like, well, your cat didn't really create a nuisance, he just kind of ran through the backyard, and that behavior could continue over and over and over again because there's no, quote, nuisance. So I understand that this might take a lot of time and stuff, but I would rather have it stay in there just so we have something we can point to than not, but that's just kind of how I'm feeling about this, but anyway.
And that's fine, Commissioner.
Okay. Chief, I really understand what you're trying to do, but I just, again, and like I said, I'm impacted. I'm trying to be a good neighbor and not make it a big issue, but the cat coming in the backyard at 2 in the morning is getting to be a nuisance, and I'd like to be able to go tell my neighbor, hey, really, you need to have these things restrained because that's the county code. So that's just my personal
But I don't think the code is like realistic. I mean, who is gonna put their cat on a leash?
A lot of people do.
Really? Really? I've, okay.
know you can buy
I've
cat
never seen a cat on a leash. I'm sorry.
Like I said, they're in the.
I see them in strollers. I see them in carriers. People bring them to the restaurant in little strollers with a cage on the, like a little zip-up vented thing. But honestly, I've never, ever seen a cat on a leash. So to me, if we're going to have a regulation, it needs to be a regulation that's realistic and gets to the issue of what you're trying to accomplish. If you're trying to say that everybody needs to keep their cats inside, well, then we just need to write an ordinance that says that. But to have an ordinance that says your cat has to be on a leash, I mean, that's, in concept, yes, but in reality, come on.
I think the ordinance just says it has to be under some restraint, which could be the little strollers thing in the little bags you mentioned, things like that. It's called a leash law because that's the common interpretation of it, but I think the code says under restraint.
But
That's correct. The code does say under restraint, and some people often confuse that term constraint, and they cross it up with confinement. It has to be an indoor cat, and it has to, stay inside at all times, so.
Okay.
I mean, isn't that why they call it a house pet?
I just think we're nitpicking, and if Chief thinks that his people are spending too much time because this is being abused, I feel like I'm missing something here, so I don't really know what the issue is, but I don't see what the problem is if we advertise it and have a public hearing, that's all you're asking, and then let everybody come and talk about it. I feel like a mountain is being made out of a molehill right now, but that's just me.
No, but, Mr. Chairman, I believe, yes, this is not the discussion point, but from this point forward, as we announce, we'll excite the public to go in the direction that they want to go into, that they feel is more comforting, and by announcement of it and a lack of a discussion, might go in a wrong direction from the very inception. So it's always healthy to talk a little bit about it. But I have a grave concern. That's why they call cats and dogs house pets. And when I go somewhere publicly and people are bringing dogs into, if that's what the establishment wants to allow, and not where there's food, but in that, and they have a 95-pound dog that's behind me as I'm trying to get something, maybe I don't know the parameters of that dog. Now with the cat, it's another thing. Anybody who has any Ring cameras or cameras, they will soon find out that at 2 o'clock in the morning, that's why the tomatoes are getting rooted up, and that's why that different things are happening in the area, because the camera gets set off by the cat, and then there's a lot of other things happening. We want to talk about animal control. The reason why it's called animal control is because it's the step shorter of positive animal ownership and the responsibility of the owner of the animal. I just feel very uncomfortable about saying, all right, it's at will now, because I think at that point we might be reducing the amount of burden on staff, but we will have no way of we have a lot of different people from a lot of different parts of this great nation moving right here in this part of Florida. And, I guess there's a whole lot of cats coming with it too. I'm seeing a whole lot more cats and a whole lot more signs about lost cat, lost cat. Well, cat wouldn't be lost if we didn't contain it, restrain it, and take care, custody, and control of our own pet. And we have enough challenge with the other item was taken off for a bit. We have to plan so that they have a quality of life, but the citizens of Indian River County have a quality of life that don't own cats. And I don't think it's much to ask for if we do have that restraint, but that's time for the discussion. But I just wanted to say what was in my mind. Thank you, Chief.
No problem, sir.
Vice Chair Ehrman.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'll be completely honest with everybody here, is that I didn't know that cats were under the same ordinance as dogs about being restrained. I really didn't know that, because I always thought the discussion was, the issue with feral cats and all that sort of stuff, which I know is near and dear to Commissioner O'Brien's heart. But I didn't really know that. So, I mean, I agree with what everybody's saying. I agree with what Commissioner O'Brien says. I almost think if it's not broken, why are we trying to fix it unless it's a real hassle to staff? But yet I agree with what Commissioner Adams says. I don't want to make a big deal out of this, because I don't know if it's a big deal to be made, because I personally didn't know that cats were under the, until I read this, until I talked with the county administrator. I didn't know that cats were under the restrictive.
Yep, all those times you climbed into a tree to rescue a cat, you didn't realize that?
I don't know. So I didn't think so. I mean, I'm okay with if we want to come back and, like you said, make it a public hearing and let people express their opinion on it, if that's the direction the staff wants to go. But I mean, as of right now, I would probably vote to say, why are we really changing it? But yet, again, I don't know. I'm kind of. This is unique conversation. That's all. I don't know what else to say.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Moss.
I've had complaints from both sides of the fence, so to speak. But there seems to be consensus here that we would be hesitant to change anything. So if I understand everyone correctly. So while I appreciate your bringing it forward, I'm not sure that we want to have a public hearing at this point, if we're not going to consider changing it. I mean, restraint would seem to, or requiring restraint would seem to be reasonable. Although, yes, I have not seen a cat on a leash. I agree completely with Commissioner Adams, but our county administrator has. He's seen a cat on a leash, so I'll let him be the closer on this if he wishes.
Yeah, I'll address that. I have seen my parents' neighbor does have a cat that he walks on a leash, but that is the only time I've seen that. So I will admit it's rare. And we are, I think, confusing confinement with a leash. I'm wondering if there's maybe a middle ground where it's confinement to one's property or not, or keeping cats off of property where the property owners don't want the cats there or something like that. Maybe there's a middle ground there, perhaps. Just throwing that out there.
Certainly, we can go back to the drawing board on that.
Just a quick Google search, is all kinds of cat leashes available? Harnesses and everything else?
I wasn't implying that they weren't available. I was implying, when have you ever actually, except for Jason, seen anybody use them?
Yeah.
I know I have 2 grandkitties. Yeah. They live in Tampa, and they're both on harneys. They just come right up and they put them on and they go for walks. And in doing that, in seeing that, in visiting, I've seen other people in that community. It's over in Tampa. So maybe things are different over there. I see a lot of people walking cats. Also want to have the opportunity to go down south of this jurisdiction. I see a lot of people walking cats. It's where there's more sidewalks, I get it. It's where it's more urban. And the place from where I came from, I see a lot of people walking cats too. Either that or they stay in the house and play in the kitty litter for a couple hours and they'll be fine. But they shouldn't be rooting up the neighbors' yards and messing around. Maybe it's good for rodent control, scare the mice away, or maybe, but unfortunately also bring dead birds to the doorsteps. And they're predatory in nature, and I believe that they need to have some control because their mind is only a certain size, and they don't know about property rights, property respect, individual rights, or citizens respect. And I think that we have to be there. If the owner isn't, we have to be there to ensure that that respect is maintained. That's what it's all about. Thanks, Chief.
Well, Commissioners, I think we've beat cats to death here this morning.
Oh, I love cats.
Did anyone wish to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we just leave it as is, and if it becomes an issue, staff can certainly bring it back later if it becomes a burden on them.
Okay.
We leave it as is.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Ehrman, second by Commissioner Flesher. Chief, I'd be glad to, if you come back with some other type of wording that, but still has some good enforcement to it, I'd be glad to look at that. But that's just from where I'm sitting, I really like the fact we have something we can point to. Says your cat can't be running through my yard, nuisance or not, and go for that. Okay.
Thank you.
We do have a motion. Is there anyone from the audience that wishes to speak? Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, thank you. My name is Miranda Hawker. I'm the health officer for the Florida Department of Health in Indian River. These ordinances were put in place for a reason, and animal control protects the public health. When you remove the requirement for restraint for cats, this opens the door for allowing free roaming cats, and those are both owned and unowned cats. This is a breakdown in our rabies control mechanisms that we've put in place for public health. The Florida Rabies Advisory Committee does not condone free roaming cats, and they are the preeminent authority on rabies in Florida. Free roaming cats increase the risks of rabies, cat bites, which are more likely to be severe, and other diseases. We had 95 cat bite investigations in 2021 and 83 in 2020. And what I can tell you is the ordinance does say restraint. It doesn't say a leash, it says restraint. And restraint, as you have discussed this morning, incorporates more than a leash. Many of you remember the GIS maps that showed the density of cat captures from 2010 to 2018. Nothing in these past 2 years of the pandemic has changed to improve that dynamic. Those high concentrations of cats were in communities of color and economically disadvantaged areas in our county. Each of these captures were generated by a complaint for a community resident. As you may remember, for those of you that remember those maps, the highest concentrations were in Gifford. There were a large number of cat captures from Vero Beach High School, the Freshman Learning Center, and Rosewood Magnet School, as well as conservation lands. I appreciate the job that animal control does. They are out there every day trying to keep all of us safe. These communities have already been impacted by the pandemic with worsening health disparities. Enabling free roaming cats increases the public health risk in the struggling communities and in our county. Removing the restraint requirement is not worth the public health risk. Thank you.
Thank you, Miranda. Welcome again, Mr. Brown.
Good morning, all. I want to preface my conversation with, in a lot of academia use root cause analysis, the 5 whys. I'm just going to use, as I talk, why. Why are we doing this? It's said that making a mountain out of a molehill, but in my community, we have social determinants of health, we have health disparities. As Mrs. Hawker has just said, these are health issues. Come in my community. These animals are territorial. They bring up diseases. They superimpose themselves on our homes, on our communities. People are dropping them off. You know, the spay, neuter, release process. We've shown previously, as Mrs. Hawker alluded to, if you remember those maps that outline Gifford, and it was in yellow, and those little red dots, put it in your mind how that looked if you were a person with measles, if you were a person that were looking at that to say the yellow has almost turned red. So I asked, why would we do something that may in an affluent, polished community may not be a problem? But in my community, it's beyond a problem. As I speak to you, I come before you from several perspectives. As a citizen of Indian River County, as a resident of Gifford, Florida, but I also carry some other responsibility. People allude to leaders. No, I'm a voice. I'm a voice for the voiceless and the marginalized in my communities. I also represent the Indian River County NAACP, which has a health committee and a health chair. And recently I was appointed as the Florida State Conference of the NAACP health chair. We're doing an initiative on health disparities. If you look at the built environment, the built environment encompasses houses, roads, lights, streets, but it also encompasses health hazards. These cats are a health hazard. They will severely impact a community that's already under-resourced, impoverished, and has a whole bunch of problems. Don't give us more problems, going back to why would you impose this on us as we move forward? From some people prism and an affluent community, hey, the cat is good. In my community, it's not. We're talking about feral cats, roaming cats. Do you know the radius of a feral cat is 2 miles? If you ask staff to superimpose a 3-mile radius on the minute definition by the census of what Gifford is, and superimpose that on it, and see how expansive it is and how much it covers my community, you'd be appalled if it was your community. There's only 3 things that encompass the cats in my community from going across US 1. It's the railroad tracks, Old Dixie, and US 1. It would be going to the gated communities that are now east of my community. So if we take control of this, I don't want to put words in Jason's mouth, but 2 years ago, he mentioned something about a place set up for cats. It may be cost, it may be this. I'm not saying destroy your cats, but please, ladies and gentlemen, you do good work for this community. You do good work for this county. Don't make a mistake by marginalizing the problems associated with an impoverished, under-resourced community of color. We're saying, okay, restraints are not necessary when I can take you home with me, sit in my father-in-law's yard, and within an hour you can count 30 cats. Thank you. Consistently do your job, but think about those of us who are marginalized. And as a friend of mine who used to be a commissioner used to say, think of the process holistically. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Anyone else?
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning. Most of you know me, Bishop Reverend McIntosh. I'm from the Wabasha community, but I'm talking to the commissioners now. I would like for you all to go up to Coley's Grocery. Just take a ride up, the 5 of you together, and take cat food with you. You will see 35 to 40 cats come out of the woods that had been brought over from Johns Island, I will say this, that had been neutered and dropped off in the black community. Come to Wabasha, I own properties there, and there are some ladies that's coming up, feeding the cats and dropping them off there. Many of you know Earl Cartwright have come through. He goes over on Johns Island and all. He brings the cats over that has been neutered. I don't need a neutered cat. There are 13 cats across the street from where I'm at. And I asked the question, where do these cats come from? Well, the people on Johns Island say they've been neutered and we're dropping them off here. I don't need 13 cats crawling across my property. So, commissioners, I'm asking you to take charge, take a drive to Gifford and Wabasha, and you will see the cats for yourself.
Thank you, Reverend. Folks, just keep in mind, we're not trying to solve the whole feral cat problem here this morning. This is strictly related to the agenda item of whether to remove cats from our restraint or leash law. I realize that a lot of you are passionate about the issue of feral cats, but we're not trying to solve that today. Mr. Paladin.
Yes, good morning again. I'm not going to get into a big discussion about cats here, but I agree with Commissioner Adams and Commissioner Moss mostly. I think we're making a bigger deal out of this than what it has to be. I mean, I personally have a cat for a pet, and I have a minx for a pet. It's a form of a cat. It's a wild animal. It's bred in Ireland. They're born with no tail, and they jump high and what have you. The people in my neighborhood, they keep their cats inside, not really because the neighbors are complaining. They keep the cats inside for their own protection. Most of the people in my neighborhood that had cats that roamed about the neighborhood have been killed by coyotes and wild animals. So I keep my cats in my yard or in my house for their own protection because there's wild animals out there that prey on them. I know we've had several pet cats in our neighborhood that's been reported killed by coyotes. So I just think, let's just leave it the way it is. And I agree with Commissioner Adams. Maybe you've seen a cat walking on a leash. I've seen cats in strollers because some of the people treat their animals like kids. And that's okay, and I do too. You know, my cats stay in the house all day, and they go out in the patio around the pool, and they hang out in the yard sometime during the day. I let them out. And I don't let them out after dark because it's dangerous for them. I'm more concerned about my cats than the neighborhood, actually. But I agree also, Mr. Brown and the other gentleman spoke, it's different areas. You can't pass the same rule in Fellsmere that you are in Gifford or on Johns Island. It's just not going to fly. Just leave it the way it is. Why create a bigger problem than what we have? And this gives an opportunity for some people in neighborhoods. I'm president of several HOAs. What a godsend that is. I mean, the people who look for reasons to complain. So all I need is for people calling me, hey, I seen a cat walking down the street, wasn't on a leash. You know, call the health, call people, call the dog catcher, cat catcher, whatever. Let's not give people more reasons to put their nose in other people's lives and cut down on their freedoms. I don't think we really have a problem here. Let's just let it alone.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on removing cats from the restraint or leash law? Good morning, welcome.
Richard Baker with Audubon. I appreciate the health department being really concerned about this project, and Commissioner O'Brien and the rest of you concerned about the whole thing too. We shouldn't call it the leash law. It's the control of your cats. And that's what I think is intended, and I don't think we want to change that at all. But the disease aspect of this cats is just, you know, rabies, toxoplasmosis, there's cat scratch fever, and there's leukemia virus, failing distemper, immunodeficiency virus, and upper respiratory diseases. And children are more apt to become in contact with these diseases than adults. They're attracted to things. I think that rabies is not so bad, but the toxoplasmosis is really the most concerned. And this is distributed by cat feces. So if these cats are roaming around, even if it's a domestic cat and it's out there with the feces, you're picking that stuff up from the water. It gets in the water, people touch it, gets into your eyes, and I think that's what it leads to. Miscarriages, blindness, and memory loss and death. And it's even around beaches, it's even worse where you have the water and things. So, I mean, there's a really great health reasons why we want cats under control. I think the law should be, they are under control. There's all kinds of reasons that we shouldn't have cats. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
As a point of,
Wait, again?
Point of humor this morning, let me speak again. My cats, actually, if they're outside, they come inside and use the litter box to go to the bathroom. They don't go outside. They come inside. They're trained to do that. So I understand what Dr. Baker said, and I agree because I also am part of the Audubon, you know, cats kill birds and stuff like that. Again, my cats, my wife trained my cats. They're not even allowed to go after little mice or anything like that, or soles or voles or whatever you call them. You just have to put a little effort into life, that's all. But like I said, my cats come in and use the bathroom, and they go outside and play. Just that simple.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Ehrman, second by Commissioner Flesher, to not move forward with the public hearing. All those in favor of the motion signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Chief. Hearing none, that motion passes 5-0. Commissioners, you want to take a quick break here before we wrap up, or you want to keep moving forward?
We only have like 4 more items.
Yeah, I'm fine moving forward if you all are. Okay. Moving on to the Office of Management and Budget, the 2022 Property Casualty Insurance Program. I believe our Budget Director, Ms. Daniels, will be leading this off. Good morning.
Good morning.
morning, Commissioners. Kristen Daniels, Budget Director, and with me today is Cynthia Stanton, the county's risk manager, and Cynthia will be giving you the presentation today on the insurance renewal.
Welcome, Cynthia.
Good morning, Commissioners and Chairman. The department's report is for the county's renewal program, insurance renewal program for May 2022. A little background about the program, or this year's renewal. Our broker, Arthur J. Gallagher, marketed the county's insurance program to secure the most comprehensive and cost-effective property and casualty insurance program. The overall insurance market is currently a hard market with insurance in high demand, and many of the insurers are shying away from certain exposures and really increasing their underwriting standards. With that said, we have provided a table with our insurance renewals. It highlights the policy coverage limits, the expiring premium and the renewal premiums, and the increase to those premiums. I'm just going to highlight some of the major changes and a little bit of the market analysis. The overall premium increase this year from the expiring year is 14%. Some of the higher increases were with the property program. That is a two-policy program. It covers the utility and non-utility program building structures, and we increased our property values this year just to be in line with the current economy and the cost of building materials. So we increased the property non-utility structures by 3% and the utility structures by 2.45%. And that had an overall impact on our property renewal with an overall 12% increase to the property non-utility program and 13% on the utility program. The inland marine policy, we also increased our exposure values by 11.73% as the county acquired new vehicles and replaced some of our old equipment. The excess workers' compensation program, that program increased by just about 27%. The factors that really pushed that increase was the county's payroll increased by 5%. The county had several large losses last year. And lastly, in Florida, many insurers are really shying away from workers' compensation for firefighters due to the presumption laws. This year, we were fortunate. We actually had a pretty good renewal, even at 27%. All the other quotes came in much higher. Our renewal this year, our retention or deductible is $650,000 currently. Our new renewal is going to be $850,000 retention, where other carriers were offering $1 million programs for our first responders. So even though our deductible went up by $200,000, our premium also increased by 27%, we were still insurable, and many other counties are not. Another change in the program is our church parking lot liability. This is the, I think it's the First Baptist Church where we use the parking lot for library services. We currently had a standalone policy. In our agreement with them, it's we need to list the church as an additional insured on our policy. The county actually opted to buy a standalone policy to insure that exposure, and we decided that we can actually non-renew this policy and just add the church to our current public entity liability policy for no cost. They'll be listed as an additional insured instead of purchasing a standalone policy to insure that exposure. Statutory accidental death and dismemberment policy actually had the biggest increase this year. It increased by 101%. Over the last 5 years, our premium for this policy totals $55,000 for the 5-year term. And just last year, the policy paid out a death benefit of $75,000. So this insurer actually lost $20,000 on our exposure, so that's why the increase actually doubled. Staff recommends the board approve the proposed renewal and authorize staff to bond coverage for May 1st, 2022 through April 30th, 2023. with a current annual premium of $3,162,269. The renewal premium is based upon the current schedule of values, current selections, coverage limits, and includes the annual broker fee of $175,000.
Okay, Commissioners, any questions of staff?
I do.
Vice Chair Ehrman?
Accidental death and dismemberment went up. Is there a reason? Is there, I mean, I haven't seen any trends or whatever. I mean, I'm not an
Yeah.
insurance person like yourself, but
That policy, the rates didn't increase, it was increased due to our exposure. So I don't know when the last time, I've only been with the county for a year, but I don't even see where we've used this policy before. But in the last 5 years that we've had this policy, we paid $55,000 in premiums for the full 5 years. And just last year, the policy paid us $75,000 for a death benefit of one of our first responders. So the insurance carrier is looking at their underwriting, saying, we received $55,000 in premiums over the last 5 years, yet we just paid out $75,000 on one claim. So they are now increasing our premium by double.
okay, and then you touched on the first responder. Was that, did I understand you right? The pre-existing conditions and stuff there, they've upped that?
For our workers' compensation coverage on first responders, a lot of carriers are, I don't want to say shying away, but they are. It's a presumption claim, so there's really no control at all. And with the laws, with the exposures for PTSD, heart, lung, those are all big exposures. If someone comes down with any kind of abnormality, they're typically costly exposures.
Right, I agree.
So we did get a renewal, and a pretty good one at 20% increase, and they're just increasing our retention or deductible. It used to be $650,000. Now they want the county to have a little more skin in the game, and they've increased our deductible to $850,000 per incident. So still insurable, just a little more out of the county's pocket.
And I think we want everybody to know that those are real. I mean, you know, those
They are.
and they do happen. The PTSD, no doubt, and then along with the heart and lung thing. You know, there is some coverage by the state to cover some of these things under the heart and lung bill. I don't know, I just find it amazing that those are easy ones for the insurance to increase, in my opinion. I think I have an issue with that, but it's probably one of those things, and Mr. Administrator or Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, there's probably not a whole lot we can do about it. Would that be fair to say?
Those are claims, they're presumption, you know, so they are something that is in the law, and we have to pay them, and they can be large sometimes, so they're just expensive to cover, and the insurance companies are pricing them accordingly.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'll move staff approval.
Okay. We have a motion by Vice Chair Ehrman, second by Commissioner Flesher. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye. Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Public Works, 12G1, Amendment Number 21 to Indian River County Civil Engineering and Land Surveying Agreement for bridge replacements and widening of 66th Avenue from south of State Road 60 to north of 57th Street. Our very own Public Works Director, Rich Sparica. Good morning, Rich.
Good morning, Commissioners. Rich Farragut, Public Works Director. If we could we do G3 first?
Yeah, I thought G1 said we're going to do the new system, and G3 was approving that, but we can do G3.
G3 is the bridge, and G1 is the design of the bridge. So if possible, I'd like to talk about the bridge first.
Okay, I'm good with that, Commissioners. Everybody good? Sure. I hear no complaints, so we will now do 12G3.
Thank you. So 12G3, we're talking about 53rd Street Bridge over lateral A, or Canal A. Back in 2021 in September, we requested that the board allow us to look into going from a 3-lane post-tension bridge to a 5-lane bridge over this canal. Reason being is, I'll bring out my inner fill, long-range planning of our roadway network. 53rd Street will eventually punch west past 66th Avenue and continue on and possibly even connect I-95 in the way distant future. But in planning for this, we looked at the road network that we have now. Right now, we're constructing a 4-lane section of 58th Avenue, and we're in the area of 53rd Street. We're building a 4-lane section going west from 53rd Avenue that'll taper back to the dirt road right now that's on 53rd Street. However, there's plans in the works for the developers to start building that roadway that will connect out to 66th Avenue at 53rd Street. In order to save the county money long range, we were looking into making this basically a 5-lane section bridge, 2 lanes each way, and then a left turn lane. As part of that, we reached out to the contractor to give us a proposal for what this would cost us. So that's what we're here talking about today. So the original bridge was about $1,100,000 to construct. It was a post-tension bridge, which means it has the cables inside of conduits to tension to concrete. Have you all read in the newspapers over the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 years? Post-tensioning bridges have had cable problems. Cables have been corroding, snapping, causing issues. So we looked at using a Florida beam system bridge, which is the new style that DOT is using. With that, it's basically beams and the concrete on top rather than using this post-tensioning. Furthermore, what we're seeing is the cost of steel, as you all know, along with all other materials, is skyrocketing. Post-tensioning cables are hard to come by. Rebar is hard to come by too, but the post-tensioning cables are really hard to come by. So in looking at this, the designers and the contractor who has it looked at doing this 5-lane section, and they came up with the cost is going to be $841,817 to go with this this beam system, which is a benefit to the county. It's short, the long-term maintenance will go down on our bridges. Additionally, if we had decided just, no, we want the post-tension, we would have added $130,000 more to this $841,000. So the change order that we have before you today to modify the bridge design, changes the 53rd Street bridge over to lateral A from 3 lanes to 5 lanes, changes the superstructure to a Florida slab beam instead of the post-tensioning, updates the bridge design to 2021 standards, and adds $60,000 or 60 days to the original contract. DOT, who is our partner in this, which we have a TRIP grant with them, has approved the change order as we are showing it to you today. Per the TRIP agreement, the county must fund the project and then request reimbursement of the grant. To date, to a maximum amount of $13,247,000. To date, we've spent about $9 million from the Traffic Impact Fee District to 66th Avenue, 49th to 69th Street, leaving a balance of $11 million in the account. Staff recommends the board approve change order number 2, authorizing an additional 60 days of contract time and additional funding in the amount of $841,817.35 for a new contract total of $33,514,955.20. I'll answer any questions.
Commissioners, any questions of staff?
So this is the new standard, the slab beam? This is the new DOT thing?
Yes, sir.
Have you seen it? You like it?
Yeah. It's good. Stout.
Structurally superior.
Yes, sir.
And
Long-term maintenance is
Mr.
cheaper. That's what we're worried about.
And in addition, up till about, I guess, a half a dozen years ago, every one of those canal crossings for our cross-traffic were, at best, a single lane. I mean, look what has happened for 57th, and I see the enhancement of mobility, but more importantly is that there were 4x4s and 1x6s as rails to ensure that the vehicles didn't go in the water. and a couple of cement pylons, which were easily compromised. So, thank you. It's a nice little
That was your intro.
intro. But I see that this is the way of the future. I guess we have to move as quickly as possible before the price increases once again. But I'm very encouraged by the envisionment for the expansion of the flow of traffic, as we all see the benefit of what happened in and around the school district area on 57th.
So is that a motion?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'll second the motion. So we have a motion by Commissioner Fletcher, second by myself, to authorize the changes. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye. Any opposed? That carries 5-0, and again, that was 12G3 that we took. We'll now go back to 12G1. And again, Mr. Spirica.
Commissioners, this is to finalize the bridge design of the bridge we just talked about. Basically, in a nutshell, we're going to the new Florida slab beam bridge design, and our consultant needs to finalize the drawings for this. So with that, it's Amendment 21, provides for the redesign of the 53rd Street Bridge over lateral A. Funding in the amount of $55,000 for Amendment 1 is available in the Traffic Impact Fees District 2, Roads Construction Progress, 66th Avenue, 49th Street to 69th Street account. Staff recommends the Board of County Commissioners approve Amendment 21 with Arcadis for the sum of $55,000 and authorizes the chairman to execute the amendment.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Ehrman, second by Commissioner Fletcher. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye. Any opposed? That carries 5-0, and that was item 12G1. And now we go to 12G2, award of bid number 2022-021, North County Library expansion. And Mr. Spirica.
Building time. Let's talk buildings. So North County Library was constructed back in 1990, and it was again expanded in 2002. The county's library master facility plan states that there should be build out between 32,000 and 53,000 square feet eventually. North County Library is very, very busy at this time, and particularly with children's services has been identified as an area to expand. As such, the board approved work order in April of 2020 for Donadio and Associates to design a 2,800 square foot addition to the North County Library to modify the existing story room and expanding it into a marker space STEM lab, provide for 2 small conference rooms and other ancillary improvements to support the expansion. The project was designed, permitted, and advertised for construction, and a bid opening for the project was held on March 8th, 2022. We only received one bid. The bid was from Proctor Construction for $1,865,456.10. Proctor Construction is considered the lowest responsible bidder for the project at $1,865,456.10. The bid is $792,000 over the engineer's cost estimate of $1,073,000. There's a substantial difference between the engineer's bid, or the engineer's cost estimate, and the bids. Basically, in a nutshell right now, we're seeing substantial material costs and labor costs throughout the country, the county. So looking at the existing market conditions, this pretty much falls within the perimeter of what we've seen from the time we did our cost estimate and we were evaluating this to now, to the time this was bid. It's a little bit, in my opinion, it's right there with the market, what the market will bear based on what we're seeing. Proctor Construction has provided professional services to the county in a satisfactory manner in the past, and upon checking the references, we have concluded that they have successfully completed other projects such as this. Funding for $1,448,726 of the cost is currently available in the three accounts listed in the staff report. The balance of $416,731 will be requested in the 22-23 year budget. Projected construction schedule will extend into the next fiscal year to coincide with the future budget amendment. Staff recommends the project be awarded to Proctor Construction in the amount of $1,865,456.10. Staff further recommends the board approve the sample agreement and authorize the chairman to execute said agreement after review and approval of the agreement and the construction bonds by the county attorney's office as to form and legal sufficiency and the receipt and approval of the required insurance by the risk manager. I'm here to answer any questions, and Mike's hanging out somewhere to back me up.
Yep.
Commissioner Adams.
Happy to see this moving forward. I'd move approval.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Flesher. Just, Rich, my understanding is that to try to narrow that gap between the engineer's estimate and the bid is that Andrew Kennedy of Proctor Construction has agreed to waive his salary during the process?
Sure.
Okay, all right. Is that part of the motion? Yeah, okay.
Mike's donating too, but.
Oh, even better. All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Fleischer. Mr. Zito, did you?
Just whatever it takes, Commissioners, and I thank you. This project is long overdue,
Yes.
much anticipated to our constituents in the North County. I do want to thank Public Works for their support, particularly Rob Skoke for his work on this project, Rich, and it's just an opportunity right now to introduce our library director, Elizabeth, more fondly known as Betsy Stenger, is a 20-plus year employee with the library system and now has passed her probationary status and has vested as the director of our library system and is doing an outstanding job. Thank you, Betsy.
All right, welcome, or congratulations, I guess. All right, so we have the motion. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries 5-0, and that was 12G2. Okay. That concludes the agenda. Commissioners, if there's nothing else for the public good, we stand adjourned.